This episode is Rich Negrin. In 1995, Rich began his career in the Philadelphia District Attorney's Office, prosecuting some of the toughest hate crimes and violent crimes in the city. He eventually moved up to work in the Major Trials Unit, where he took on hundreds of felony trials and some of Philadelphia's toughest criminals. More recently, Rich served as managing director and deputy mayor for the city of Philadelphia, where he helped oversee an annual budget of $5.5 billion and managed nearly 30,000 employees. Rich also oversaw the growth of PhillyRising, an innovative neighborhood quality of life initiative that uses technology to help create an improved sense of community and deliver vital services. Rich also served as vice chair of the Independent Philadelphia Board of Ethics from 2006 to 2010. In addition to his public service, Rich worked as vice president and general counsel of Aramark's healthcare and correctional service businesses and is a partner at the law firm of Obermeyer, Redman, Maxwell, and Hippel. And Rich has also won numerous impressive awards, which can be seen on his website. Now let's listen to what he has to say at the Chancellor's Forum.
This is a deeply personal issue for me. My parents came to this country almost 50 years ago looking for freedom. I'm the son of immigrants. They were fleeing communism and an oppressive regime in Cuba. So that I could be born here and have the kind of freedom, they were willing to give up everything so that I could be born in America and grow up in this country. I believe that those values are alive and well today in Philadelphia. As managing director, I created the mayor's office. I spearheaded the creation of the mayor's office on immigrant and multicultural affairs. That office, and I see its director, Fernando Trevino, is here, has done so much for this city in terms of driving the sanctuary city policy, which I wholly support. DAs should not be in the business of cooperating with ICE. I think Larry's correct. I think the others are correct. I think we're all on the same page on this issue. We need to be the front line of defense. We need a district attorney who's ready to lead, who's ready to fight, who has the experience, who's going to fight back. I was dubious of the last administration's efforts around ICE and the number of folks they deported. Now we're hearing about mass deportations. The stories that we're hearing across our city are frightening and scary. I had a 4.5-year-old kid Sunday at a park come up to me with him and his dad, and he said that his son had heard, asked his dad whether his friends were going to be deported. Our communities are in fear. We need to do what we can to stop that and safeguard our values. We are Philadelphia. The American dream starts here. Mr. Negrin. Kevin, your question is really one about culture. I think what I'm hearing in that question, the underlying question, is really around that win-at-all-cost mentality. I think what we're talking about is significant culture change required in the DA's office, not just in the appellate unit, but throughout the entire office. I think when you don't take conviction review seriously, and you start off with one highly talented lawyer only doing it part-time, to then moving on to 3 folks, that's not the national model. We have resources locally. You'll hear a commitment from me right now, and I'll tell you. We have a great Quattrone Center here at Penn who is working on these issues, and I promise to work with them. This is what we need to do. I'm the only candidate up here, and one of the few former prosecutors who have actually served on the Pennsylvania Innocence Board, on that project board. We've had 60 exonerations in Pennsylvania. 60 exonerations where we got it wrong. That number's probably higher now, right? Because I started saying that at the beginning of this campaign. It's probably 61, 62 at this point, because it happens every so often. We need to make a change, and that is cultural change. And I'm the only one that has significant management experience running large organizations to drive change through an organization. That's why this is so important. It's not just about being a good lawyer. It's not just about good policies. The DA's office is a huge office, 650 people, and we need a manager to go in there and change their culture.
Mr. Negrin?
I am on the record on this. I think you're going to be disappointed, Kevin, in that there's a lot of agreement on this answer up here at the table, because I've heard these answers before. We are the national model for civil forfeiture run amok. They have national conferences on civil forfeiture where they talk about and highlight Philadelphia. That is an embarrassment. That's not going to happen under a Negrin administration. We're going to revamp and retool this unit in a real substantial way. You've heard some of it already. Requiring convictions, demanding due process. We've all heard the story of the grandmother who's losing her home because her grandson was selling weed on the front step. That's an injustice. The DA's office, above and beyond all of this, whether it's asset forfeiture or Brady or mass incarceration or whatever it is, needs to be in the business of justice and a search for absolute truth. You can't allow and stand for justice when you're committing an injustice like removing someone's home without having a clear criminal connection. And I think Jack is right. I think you have to remove the profit motive. I think that DAs who are incentivized to take homes, to put that into their budget, creates an opportunity for mischief. When I ran PhillyRising in our neighborhoods, we worked hard to find locations for nonprofits to really give back to the community. This is a great opportunity to do that through our asset forfeiture. Take a negative asset that's been a blight on that community and turn it into a positive one and make a difference. That's what the DA's office should be about.
Mr. Cranston almost jumped out of his seat when you mentioned justice. Mr. Negrin.
So I'm going to answer this question consistently just to make sure that I say the same thing every time. Do I believe in the decriminalization of marijuana? The answer to that is as DA, yes. As a dad for my kids who are listening, no. I want to make sure they hear that loud and clear. Look, I was managing director when we did that, and I support that. I think Mayor Kenny was exactly right. I think it is a waste of resources, and I think it makes no sense to criminalize that kind of behavior. The question that you asked, the other one is a tougher one, right? I think, would you be willing to decriminalize other drugs? I think that's a tougher question for us, to be decriminalized strong Schedule I narcotics, whether it's heroin or crack or cocaine. I don't think that's the way to go. I think for us the way to go is to be smarter around diversion programs and around treatment. I think that instead of decriminalizing a whole host of drugs, what we need to do is realize that we are criminalizing people for their addictions in Philadelphia, and that we shouldn't do that we need to figure out how to double the resources in our drug treatment courts. We have some drug treatment courts here that are national models and doing a great job. We need to drastically increase those and divert folks so that they're not going to jail, they're not being locked up, they're not being punished for their addictions, they're actually treating the underlying addiction that helps prevent crime and that has led to mass incarceration all these years.
Mr. Negrin.
Yeah, I think mandatory minimums are part of the reason why we find ourselves in this present state of mass incarceration. I think we all know that they disproportionately impact Black and Latino folks like me. I think we've seen that over the years. I think it's been proven by the numbers. I think it specifically with low-level drug offenses and small amounts, I think they've been applied in a manner that is unconstitutional. I think that's why they were overturned to begin with. I don't support mandatory minimums. I would use the power and the influence in my office to make sure that we didn't pursue them. I think it's a different conversation to have around gun violence. I think that we need to get tougher on guns. I think probation sometimes for folks who have 1, 2, 3 gun offenses and have kind of learned to walk around with that gun as a way of life is something that we have to talk about and have a real conversation around violence. So I don't support mandatory minimums in general.
Mr. Negrin.
Everywhere I've ever been, I've posted every single job. I think one of the problems in the DA's office has been this culture of cronyism, where folks who have relationships get jobs and get hired without jobs even being posted. So the first thing I'm going to do is professionalize that process and make sure that we do that well, and we don't just hire our friends, and that matters. The model for me is, for those of you who don't know her, she's a young senator from California named Kamala Harris. She was a district attorney in California. She was the attorney general for California. She's strong, she's smart, she's diverse. I think she's going to be our first female president of the United States. I'm a big fan. I think the model and how she understands how a prosecutor can make a difference in a community, with a community-based model, is why I'm a big fan.
Mr. Negrin.
Thank you to whoever asked that question, because we haven't been talking a lot about victims in this race. My story, and it goes to the core of why I'm running for DA. My story began when I was 13 years old. This is not politics or policy for me, this is personal. I lost my dad to a homicide. My father was murdered, gunned down, in a 10 submachine gun, and died in the street in my arms when I was a little boy. It was a community that came around to help support me. It was football, it was my faith, it was my family. That's why I'm creating a community-based model of the DA's office. If you go on my website, look at our plan, look at all of our bios, look at what we've done. But look at my plan for community engagement. I did a lot of this as managing director through our great program called PhillyRising. I'm going to reimagine the role of the DA as a community champion and be the champion for victims that I've been my entire life. That's why I was on the board of Ceasefire, to make a difference. This is not just about policy, folks. This is about passion and who's the right person for this job.
Tell them how you really feel, Mr. Kramer. And now you'll be able to tell us how you really feel, Mr. Negrin.
Thank you. You know, in case you didn't know, I was the one who was endorsed by the FOP. That's it.
Yeah.
But you know, here's the part they won't talk to you about. I was also endorsed by the black law enforcement officers and the Latino law enforcement officers. Nobody else up here sought that endorsement. I did. I wonder why. I was also endorsed by the Guardian Civic League. I am offended by little more than public corruption. It's why I was on the ethics board here in Philadelphia, appointed by Mayor Street. It's why, as city managing director, I drove ethics reform through the managing director's office. So we went from having 22 indictments in the prior administration to having 0 under my watch as managing director. We need to impose that kind of integrity in not just the DA's office, where you have someone with the credibility to change the culture, create a culture of integrity, but also someone who has the credibility to work with all of our police officers to push them to do the kind of reforms they need, not someone who's been attacking them their entire career.
Thank you, Mr. Negrin.
Change. That's what this is about. Let's hold our officers accountable.
Mr. Negrin.
We have an office in crisis. An opiate epidemic run amok, a generation lost to mass incarceration. We have huge, gut-wrenching poverty here in Philadelphia. We have a man in the White House that wants to build walls. We need a district attorney who's going to build bridges, who has a record of building bridges, working in every community. Folks, we don't have time for on-the-job training. We need someone who is ready to lead today. We need someone with the management experience, the integrity experience, not just a good lawyer, not just an ethical person, someone who's driven ethics through an organization. I've been not just a prosecutor, a defense lawyer at Morgan Lewis, corporate counsel where I was on the executive leadership council, and then obviously I had the honor to serve the city of Philadelphia. This isn't about a protest candidacy for me. This isn't about a policy candidacy for me. This is about serving the city that I love and our young people and doing something to stem the tide of the violence that is in our communities. That are things that I've done, not talked about. That's why President Obama named me a White House champion of change, because of the programs that I ran. PhillyRising, 311, Philly Key Spots. That's why the National Hispanic Bar Association named me Latino Lawyer of the Year a few years ago. Those are about accomplishments. I am ready to lead. My name's Rich Negrin, and I want to be your next DA.